Some of my Republican friends, when they found out that I'm endorsing both Angela and Doug and Tom Chabin, said, "What are you thinking of and what are you doing that for?" Well, it's real easy. Having spent 8 years down at the legislature and seeing what's gone on down there for the last 3.5 years, we need a change. And that change needs to come not only from Republicans and Democrats, it needs to come from people that know how to bring people together. Now, in Angela's case, I've known Angela for a long time now. We've dealt on a number of issues, and as Jim said, there's times when we've disagreed. In fact, very verbally have we disagreed. And we found a way to come back together, sometimes even within the same conversation, and find a way to try to resolve issues through solutions, not through force. And that is part of the problem with government today. We've gotten away from solving problems and got to how do we stay in power. And we have to get back to solving problems. And I think Angela and Doug and Tom Chabin are the type of personalities, the type of people that care about their community that will do that. Now, I have a couple of things here from their campaign adversaries. And this is from the Payson Roundup. And one of them deals with education. Mr. Crandall made a statement at a Tea Party event that he believes that schools that don't perform correctly should lose their funding. Actually lose their funding. So in other words, this type of thought process, this type of ideology says what we should do is punish the children of this state because a school didn't perform the way it should. Now, he didn't say, why didn't that school perform the way it should? He could have said that Arizona is 51st in funding. He could have said that our schools don't have the librarians, they don't have the appropriate mentors, they don't have the tutors, they don't have the nurses in the schools anymore. They don't have all those elements that make a school district strong because of state funding and lack thereof. He could have said that as we transfer state funding from the state, or school funding from the state to the local school district, yes, we're saving money at the state level, but we're putting the burden on who? The taxpayers, the property taxpayers in those local areas. And who does that hurt the most? Two areas: poverty-stricken areas and rural areas. You know, one of those skyrises down there in Phoenix can fund a lot of issues for schools. We don't have those here. We have hardworking people in areas that have a mix between poverty and in some cases upper income, but they are just transferring the burden. They are not doing away with the burden, and the burden from property taxes cannot make up for the loss of state revenues. And so this whole idea that we just shift the burden and penalize children and penalize what Arizona's don't understand is that we are in the middle of the 50 states. We're funded 51st. We are in the middle for achievement of our students. So our teachers aren't to blame either. They're doing a job. And the idea of education is not just teachers, it's not just the schools, it's the community and it's the parents. So you can't just lay blame on poor processes with a school, poor attainment within a school just because of that. Healthcare, Jim talked about. And when you speak about rural Arizona, you talk about areas that have some of the largest access clients or numbers in the entire state. The Verde Valley is one of those areas. It's like these people that are running against Doug and Angela and Tom don't understand they represent us, not their ideology. They represent the people that elect them to office, and if they don't vote and elect them to office, I was of the premise, we had a talk this morning, in fact we met for a couple hours, and as I said to Angela, if you were a constituent, I didn't look up to see if you were a Republican or a Democrat or an independent or didn't vote in the last election. What I said is, you're a constituent, Mr. Lobbyist, you have to leave the office. A constituent of mine came down to see me. And that is what representative government is about, representing all the people in your district, not just those that get you elected. And we have to get back to that as part of our state. The other piece of this, of course, is how do you reconcile some of the thought processes that go on down in our current legislature. They had the two of the people supported a bill to take take over our forest in our state from the federal government. Now, the governor, I think, in her veto message on that bill was correct. We can't afford it. We don't have the number of personnel to be able to deal with it. It's too complicated an issue for the state to take care of. And it's tied directly to our tourism industry. And do we want to wreck a tourism industry and wreck the ecology of our forest because a couple of ideologues want to say we're going to fight the federal government on almost everything? It's like waking up in the morning and looking at your wife and saying, today I'm going to fight you again. You know, you have to come together. And these people are tearing people apart. And it just has to stop. So I endorse Angela Le Fevre. I endorse Doug. And as I said the other day to a friend of mine, I said, I will do everything I can in my power to make sure that ideologues such as the three people running against Angela, Doug, and Tom Chabon do not get into office. It is bad for the state, it's bad for the people of the state, and it is especially bad for the children of the state and the workforce development of the state and the businesses of the state. And with that,